listening to Proof Text, a Glossa House podcast by Dr. T. Michael W. Halcomb, Dr. Frederick J. Long, Dr. Mario Melendez, Dr. Jennifer Noonan, and J. M. Smith. Welcome and enjoy.
Shalom and welcome to SLA Insights. My name is Dr. Jennifer Noonan, and I'd like to start this episode with a question. What do you think is the one thing that second language acquisition experts say you have to acquire a language? What is absolutely necessary for language acquisition? Well, the answer is input. And input is defined as the language that a learner hears or reads that has some kind of communicative intent. In other words, it's authentic language that the learner receives, again, either by hearing or by reading. Now, if you think about it, this really is logical. We couldn't know that sombrero means hat if we have never heard or read the word sombrero. Someone could ask, what is the word for hat in Spanish? And we just don't know because we'd never heard it before. And so input, we have to have language input. And so today I'm going to begin a series of episodes where we do a deep dive into input. I'm going to start today with more of the theoretical background and what input is and how we got to where we are. But then I'm going to work in future episodes on further details, practical examples, and so on. So let's dig in. Input. We need input, but what if you found a podcast in a language that you've never learned? You're getting lots of input. You're hearing it, all kinds of foreign words that you've never heard before, lots of things, or maybe it's a book that you've read, in a language you've never read. You're reading it, you're not getting anything, okay? It's input. So how is that going to help you? What is that going to do? What does it mean you need input? How does that work? Well, SLA researchers have boiled it down to not just any input, but what they call comprehensible input. And that is just like it sounds. Any input that you can understand. So a learner needs comprehensible input in order to learn. Now, let's assume that the letter I stands for input, the input that you can understand. It's comprehensible, but then we've got another problem. If you understand everything in it, you're not learning or acquiring more of the language. So what they've come to understand is that the input that's ideal for acquisition is I plus 1. That is the input you can understand plus just a little bit more. So it's only 1 degree more difficult than what you already know. Now, Creation is the name who is consistently associated with comprehensible input. He didn't originate the idea, but he certainly popularized it in the early 1980s and formulated what's known as the input hypothesis, also called the comprehension hypothesis. And he's the one who brought in this formula of I plus 1, the input that you understand plus 1 degree. When you get that combination, it's ideally suited for acquisition. And his research and his hypothesis really set a course for the field of SLA research and practice, so much so that it is just assumed. At this point, comprehensible input, the idea of the input hypothesis, the comprehension hypothesis, is just assumed in the field of SLA research. They've moved beyond proving that it's true to now looking for how to manipulate that input, how to formulate that input, how much input, how to use the input to increase the acquisition of the language, to speed up acquisition, to increase the accuracy. So we're looking at not just affirming, it's been affirmed. The comprehension hypothesis, the input hypothesis has been affirmed. We're now moving beyond that in the realm of SLA research and practice to how do we make the best input we can to promote the fastest, most efficient, most accurate acquisition of the language. So that's a basic overview of the theory behind input and the necessity of input. It's really, really important. So according to researchers, just a quick review, according to researchers in the field of second language acquisition, input is the one thing that is absolutely necessary for language acquisition to occur, and specifically comprehensible input. Now, it's not sufficient, but it is absolutely necessary. So in the next few episodes, I'm going to go talk about first, how do we make input comprehensible? And this is going to be really important for those of us who teach Hebrew, Greek, Latin, when all we have are ancient texts in the language. We don't have native speakers. We don't have kids' books. We don't have input that would be comprehensible, especially for a first-year student. So how do we take the input that we have and make it comprehensible, especially, again, for a beginner? So that's going to be the first section. After that, I'm going to talk about ways to increase the quantity of input. If input is that important, we need more of it. So how do we get there? How do we add input into our teaching? And then the third section of this mini-series is going to be increasing the quality of the input. How do we manipulate the input in such a way to make sure that the students are getting what they need from the input in order to learn to acquire the language? So, comprehensible input for this week. I look forward to digging in some more in the upcoming weeks with you. Have a great week.
Interested in growing your ancient language skills but not sure where to start? Glossa House can help. From illustrated readers and short stories to lexicons and grammars, Glossa House offers a variety of resources for beginning, intermediate, and experienced ancient language learners. Head to glossahouse.com today. Glossa House, language resources for the global community.